The bedroom door stood open just enough for Nina Bennett to see everything. Her husband Julian was tangled in their sheets with Veronica, his assistant from the family restaurant. They didn't hear her come home early. They didn't hear her drop her purse. They didn't hear her heart shatter into 1,000 pieces. 3 hours earlier, Nina had sat in a lawyer's office and signed away her entire inheritance. $250,000. Every penny her mother had left her before dying 6 months ago. She signed it all over to save Julian's family restaurant from bankruptcy. The Castellano family business, started by his grandparents, was drowning in debt. Julian had begged her. His mother had cried. His father had clasped her hands and called her a blessing. Now she stood frozen in the hallway of the home she had helped pay for, watching her husband kiss another woman's neck in the bed she had picked out. The afternoon sunlight streamed through the window, making everything sickeningly bright and clear. There was no mistaking what she saw. No room for doubt or explanation. Nina? Julian's voice cracked as he finally noticed her. He scrambled to cover himself, his face draining of color. Veronica sat up slowly, pulling the sheet around her body. She didn't look surprised. She didn't look guilty. She looked annoyed that they had been interrupted. "I just gave you everything," Nina heard herself say. Her voice sounded strange, distant. "I signed the papers 3 hours ago." Julian stumbled out of bed, grabbing his pants from the floor. "Nina, please, I can explain." "Don't." The word came out sharp enough to stop him mid-sentence. "Don't you dare." She turned and walked down the hallway, her legs moving on autopilot. Behind her, she heard Julian cursing, heard him telling Veronica to leave, heard the panic in his voice. None of it mattered. The only thing that mattered was getting out of this house before she fell apart completely. Nina grabbed her purse from where it had fallen and walked out the front door. She got in her car and drove. She didn't know where she was going. She just drove until the numbness started to crack and the tears began to fall. She ended up at her best friend Carmen's apartment across town. Carmen took one look at Nina's face and pulled her inside without asking questions. They sat on the couch together while Nina told her everything in a broken, halting voice. "How long?" Carmen asked quietly. "I don't know." Nina wiped her eyes. "But Veronica looked so comfortable in my bed. Like she belonged there." Carmen's jaw tightened with anger. "What are you going to do?" Nina looked down at her hands. Her wedding ring caught the light, the small diamond Julian had been so proud to give her 5 years ago. Back when they were both broke and dreaming about their future together. Back when she thought he loved her as much as she loved him. "I don't know," she whispered. "I just gave them everything, Carmen. Everything my mother left me. The restaurant would have closed next month without that money. His whole family would have lost everything. And he was sleeping with his assistant the entire time you were trying to save them." The words hit like a physical blow. Nina had been so focused on helping Julian's family, so consumed with grief over losing her mother, that she hadn't seen what was happening right in front of her. How long had Julian been lying to her? How many times had he come home from late nights at the restaurant, and climbed into bed beside her, smelling like Veronica's perfume? Her phone started ringing. Julian's name flashed on the screen. Then again. And again. "Don't answer it," Carmen said firmly. "Not until you're ready." But Nina wasn't sure she would ever be ready. She had spent 5 years building a life with Julian. She had put him through business school while working 2 jobs. She had stood by him when his restaurant ideas failed. She had nursed his mother through surgery. She had become part of his family. And today, the same day she gave them everything she had, she discovered it was all built on lies. The phone kept ringing into the evening. Text messages piled up. Julian's mother called. His father called. Even Veronica had the nerve to send a message saying they needed to talk. Nina turned off her phone and laid down on Carmen's couch. Tomorrow she would figure out what to do. Tomorrow she would start picking up the pieces. But tonight she just needed to let herself break. Architected emotional narrative revealing family betrayal and financial deception. I need to continue with chapter 2 and make it 1,000 words. This chapter is about Nina learning the affair has been going on for 2 years, throughout her mother's illness and death. She discovers financial records showing Julian spent her money on Veronica while his family knew. Nina woke up on Carmen's couch with swollen eyes and a pounding headache. For a brief moment she forgot everything. Then reality crashed back down and she wanted to disappear into the cushions forever. Carmen was already awake, sitting at her kitchen table with a laptop open. "I made coffee," she said gently. "And I think you need to see something." Nina sat up slowly, her whole body aching. "What is it?" "I couldn't sleep, so I started looking into some things." Carmen turned the laptop around. Do you have access to your joint bank account from here? Nina nodded and pulled out her phone. She had turned it back on to 37 missed calls and twice as many text messages. She ignored all of them and opened her banking app. What she saw made her stomach drop. Over the past 2 years, Julian had been making cash withdrawals. Large ones. 2,000 here. 3,000 there. Money she had assumed was going to the restaurant. But now Carmen had pulled up Veronica's social media accounts, and the timeline told a different story. Look at the dates, Carmen said, pointing to the screen. A cash withdrawal of $3,000 on March 15th. On March 17th, Veronica posted pictures from a spa weekend at a luxury resort. $5,000 withdrawn in June. Veronica posted about her new designer purse in the same week. The pattern went back months. Years. He was using your money to buy her things, Carmen said quietly, while you were working overtime to help pay the restaurant's bills. Nina felt sick. She scrolled further back in the bank records. The withdrawal started 2 years ago, right around the time her mother was diagnosed with cancer. While Nina had been splitting her time between work, hospital visits, and helping at the restaurant, Julian had been starting an affair with his assistant. Her phone rang again. Julian's mother this time. Nina almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Nina, sweetheart, please come home. Mrs. Castellano's voice was tight with stress. Julian told us what happened. It was a mistake. A terrible mistake. But you can work through this. Think about the family. The family, Nina repeated flatly. Yes, we need you. The restaurant needs you. Your money is saving everything. Don't throw away your marriage over one mistake. Nina's hand tightened on the phone. One mistake. How long have you known about Veronica? The silence on the other end was deafening. Mrs. Castellano. How long have you known? Nina, that's not important. How long? Another pause. Then quietly, about a year. But we thought it would pass. These things happen in marriages. What matters is that Julian chose to stay with you. You chose family. That should mean something. Nina ended the call. Her hands were shaking so hard she could barely hold the phone. They knew. His whole family knew, and they let her keep giving them money. They let her sacrifice her inheritance while their son betrayed her. Carmen put a hand on her shoulder. What did she say? They knew for a year. Nina's voice was hollow. They all knew and nobody told me. She opened her text messages. Most were from Julian, begging her to come home to let him explain. But there was one from Veronica that made Nina's blood run cold. We should talk. There are things you don't know about Julian's plans. I can explain everything if you meet me for coffee. She wants to meet. Nina showed Carmen the message. Absolutely not, Carmen said immediately. She doesn't get to play the concerned friend now. Whatever she has to say, she can say through a lawyer. A lawyer? Nina repeated. The word felt foreign in her mouth, but also right. This wasn't something she could fix with a conversation or tears or forgiveness. This required legal action. She spent the next hour searching for divorce attorneys online. By noon, she had consultations scheduled with 3 different lawyers for the following week. She also opened a separate bank account and transferred every penny from their joint account that came from her paychecks and inheritance before Julian could access it. Her phone rang again. This time it was Julian's father. Nina, you're being unreasonable, he said without preamble. So Julian made a mistake. Men make mistakes. But you don't destroy a family over it. Think about what you're doing. That money you gave us, it came with certain expectations about your loyalty to this family. Nina felt something snap inside her. Expectations? You expected me to keep funding your restaurant while your son cheated on me with his employee? Watch your tone. No. You watch yours. That was my inheritance. My mother's money. And I'm going to make sure you didn't get it through fraud. She hung up and immediately called the lawyer's office she had marked as her first choice. I need to speak with someone today, she told the receptionist. It's urgent. My husband may have accessed my inheritance illegally. They fit her in for a late afternoon appointment. Nina spent the rest of the day gathering documents. Bank statements. The transfer papers for her inheritance. Text messages between her and Julian about the restaurant. Every email his family had sent thanking her for her generosity. By the time she arrived at the lawyer's office, she had a folder full of evidence. The attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Reeves, looked through everything carefully. Did you sign anything giving your husband power of attorney over your inheritance? Patricia asked. No. Just the transfer to the restaurant LLC. Patricia nodded slowly. And this transfer happened the same day you discovered the affair? 3 hours before. That's suspicious timing. Especially if he knew you might find out that day. Patricia looked up. Nina, I think your husband may have been planning this for a while. We need to look deeper into these financial records. I also need you to tell me everything about how this transfer was arranged. Who suggested the timing? Who prepared the documents? Nina thought back to that morning in the lawyer's office. Julian had been insistent about doing it that day. He said they needed to act fast to save the restaurant. His family's lawyer had prepared all the paperwork in advance. He set me up, Nina whispered. He wanted my money before I found out about Veronica. Patricia's expression was grim. I think so. And we're going to prove it. The next week passed in a blur of legal consultations and document gathering. Nina stayed with Carmen and took sick leave from her job at the accounting firm where she worked as a junior analyst. She couldn't face her co-workers' concerned questions or pretend everything was fine. Patricia Reeves worked fast. Within days, she had subpoenaed Julian's phone records, email accounts, and financial statements. What they uncovered was worse than Nina had imagined. He's been planning to divorce you for 6 months, Patricia said during their meeting. I found emails between Julian and Veronica discussing it. They were waiting until after your inheritance cleared. Nina stared at the printed emails on the desk. Words jumped out at her. Once we have her money secured. After the transfer goes through. She'll be too grief-stricken to fight hard. They had used her mother's death as part of their strategy. They had counted on her grief making her weak and compliant. There's more, Patricia continued. The restaurant LLC paperwork has some irregularities. Julian added himself as the primary controlling member after you made the transfer. According to these documents, you're listed as an investor, not a partner. That means you have no say in how the money is used and no claim to profits. But I transferred my entire inheritance. Doesn't that give me ownership? It should. But these documents were altered after you signed them. Look at the dates on the digital signatures. Patricia showed her the metadata. Nina's signature was dated the day of the transfer. Julian's controlling member designation was added 3 days later. The same day she had discovered him with Veronica. He planned this whole thing, Nina said numbly. Every step. It looks that way. But we have him on fraud. These altered documents are illegal. We can freeze the restaurant's assets and potentially have the transfer reversed. Nina thought about Julian's family. His mother who had called her a blessing. His father who had held her hands in gratitude. They had all been part of this scheme, helping Julian steal from her while she grieved her mother. Do it, Nina said. File everything. I want them investigated for fraud. Patricia nodded approvingly. I'll file the divorce petition today with fraud allegations attached. I'll also file to freeze the restaurant accounts until we can sort out the financial situation. Be prepared, this is going to get ugly. She wasn't wrong. Within hours of Patricia filing the paperwork, Nina's phone exploded with calls. Julian's family was furious. His mother left a voicemail calling her vindictive and cruel. His father threatened to sue her for defamation. Julian himself sent a long text message claiming she was destroying innocent people's lives over a moment of weakness. But it was the message from Veronica that surprised her most. You should know Julian was planning to leave you anyway. I'm pregnant. He promised me we'd be together once he secured your money. You're just speeding up the inevitable. Nina showed the message to Patricia at their next meeting. She's trying to hurt you, Patricia said. But she's also given us evidence of premeditation. This shows Julian's affair wasn't a mistake. It was part of a calculated plan to use you financially before leaving. She's pregnant, Nina repeated. The words felt surreal. That's unfortunate for her, but it's not your problem. Your problem is recovering your inheritance and protecting yourself legally. Patricia was right. Nina needed to focus on the practical matters, not on the emotional devastation. She spent the next few days moving her belongings out of the house she had shared with Julian. Carmen and 2 other friends helped her pack while Julian was at the restaurant. She took only what was hers. Her clothes. Her books. The pictures of her mother. The few pieces of furniture she had bought herself. She left her wedding photos on the kitchen counter and her rings beside them. As she was loading the last box into Carmen's car, a BMW pulled up. Veronica stepped out, her hand resting on her still flat stomach in an obvious gesture. Nina, we should talk, Veronica said. We have nothing to discuss. I think we do. Julian loves me. He was going to leave you anyway. Your money just made it easier for us to start our new life together. Nina felt Carmen tense beside her, ready to defend her if needed. But Nina didn't need defending. She looked at Veronica calmly and said, "You're welcome to him. But you won't see a penny of my mother's money. That I promise you." She got in the car and drove away without looking back. As Carmen drove them back to her apartment, Nina felt something shift inside her. The crushing grief and betrayal were still there. But underneath it, something harder was forming. Determination. Anger. A cold desire to make sure Julian and his family faced consequences for what they had done. That evening, Nina sat down at Carmen's kitchen table with her laptop and started making a list. She documented every lie Julian had told her. Every time his family had manipulated her emotions. Every dollar that had been taken from her under false pretenses. She also started looking at job listings. Her position as a junior analyst barely covered her basic expenses. She needed more income if she was going to rebuild her life independently. She had a business degree and solid financial skills. She just needed someone to give her a chance to prove herself. By midnight, she had updated her resume and applied to 15 different positions, all at higher levels than her current job. She applied to consulting firms, corporate financial departments, and even a few startup companies looking for business strategists. Carmen found her still working at 2 in the morning. "You need to sleep." "I need to survive," Nina corrected. "And to survive, I need to be stronger than I've ever been." She sent one more application, to a prestigious consulting firm across town that specialized in helping businesses avoid financial fraud and mismanagement. The irony wasn't lost on her. She had fallen victim to exactly the kind of schemes she would now help other people avoid. Her phone buzzed with another text from Julian. She deleted it without reading and blocked his number. Then she blocked his family's numbers too. The only person she would communicate with now was Patricia, her lawyer. "I'm done being their victim," Nina said out loud. "Tomorrow I start fighting back." The divorce proceedings began 2 weeks later. Nina sat in the courthouse conference room across from Julian and his lawyer, a slick man in an expensive suit who looked like he ate people for breakfast. Julian wouldn't meet her eyes. He looked tired, his usually neat appearance disheveled. Patricia laid out their case methodically. The altered documents. The emails proving premeditation. The financial records showing Julian had been stealing from their joint account to fund his affair. The timeline proving he had manipulated Nina into signing over her inheritance while planning to leave her. Julian's lawyer tried to argue it was a misunderstanding. That the affair was a mistake born from stress. That the document alterations were clerical errors. Patricia shut down every argument with cold, hard evidence. By the end of the meeting, even Julian's lawyer looked uncomfortable. The judge assigned to their case ordered a full forensic accounting of the restaurant finances and froze all assets until the investigation was complete. "This is killing my family," Julian said as they left the conference room. It was the first time he had spoken directly to Nina in weeks. "My parents might lose everything because of your vindictiveness." Nina stopped and looked at him. Really looked at him. The man she had loved for 7 years. The man she had sacrificed everything for. He looked like a stranger. "I gave your family my entire inheritance to save their restaurant," she said quietly. "You used my grief over my mother's death to steal from me. You altered legal documents. You planned to divorce me the moment the money was secured. And now you're calling me vindictive? It wasn't like that." "Yes, it was exactly like that. And now you're facing the consequences." She walked away before he could respond. Patricia was waiting by the elevator with an expression that might have been approval. "The forensic accountant will take about 3 weeks to complete the audit," Patricia said. "But I already have preliminary findings. Your husband didn't just alter the LLC documents. He also created a second set of books for the restaurant. The one he showed you had the restaurant drowning in debt. The real one shows it was struggling but not in immediate danger of closing." Nina felt her knees weaken. "He fabricated the crisis?" "Partially. The restaurant had problems but not as severe as he made them seem. He inflated the debt figures to justify asking for more money from you. Your $250,000 was more than enough to save it. The extra he claimed they needed was going to be his and Veronica's nest egg." The elevator doors opened. Nina stepped inside, gripping the railing for support. "How could I have been so blind?" "You weren't blind. You were grieving and in love. He took advantage of both." Patricia's voice was firm. "But you're not that person anymore. You're fighting back. And we're going to win." The next 3 weeks were brutal. Julian's family launched a PR campaign painting Nina as a heartless woman who was destroying a beloved local business over a marital spat. They gave interviews to local news outlets, crying about how they might lose their family legacy. What they didn't know was that Patricia had already contacted those same news outlets with Nina's side of the story. The emails, the altered documents, the evidence of fraud. The narrative shifted overnight. Suddenly the story wasn't about a vindictive wife. It was about a family business that had committed fraud to steal from a grieving woman. Customers started boycotting the restaurant. Health inspectors found violations they had previously overlooked. The Castellano family's reputation crumbled. Nina watched it all happen with a strange sense of detachment. She had never wanted to destroy anyone. She had just wanted her money back and a divorce. But Julian and his family had forced this escalation by lying, by manipulating the press, by refusing to admit what they had done. Meanwhile, the consulting firm Nina had applied to called her for an interview. She walked into their sleek downtown office wearing a suit she couldn't really afford and carrying a portfolio of her financial analysis work. The interview was with two senior partners, Mr. Harrison and Ms. Chen. They were impressed by her credentials but seemed more interested in her current legal situation. "We've been following your case in the news," Mr. Harrison said. "You identified a complex fraud scheme in your own life. That takes intelligence and courage. And you're still functional enough to be here interviewing while going through a divorce," Ms. Chen added. "That takes discipline." Nina wasn't sure if this was good or bad. "I believe in staying productive even during difficult times. We have a position open for a senior consultant in our fraud prevention division," Mr. Harrison said. "Usually we require 5 years of experience. You have 2. But your real-world experience with financial fraud gives you insights our other candidates lack. Are you offering me the job?" "We're offering you a 3-month trial period," Ms. Chen said. "Prove you can handle the work and we'll make it permanent. The salary is $65,000, almost double what you're making now." Nina wanted to cry with relief. Instead, she shook their hands professionally and said, "I won't let you down." She started the following Monday. The work was intense, analyzing business financial records, identifying red flags, creating fraud prevention strategies for clients. But after what she had been through, spotting financial manipulation felt like second nature. Her co-workers were supportive but professional. They knew about her divorce case but didn't pry. Nina appreciated being treated normally, being valued for her skills rather than pitted for her circumstances. The forensic accounting report came back in her 4th week at the new job. Patricia called her into the office to review it. "It's better than we hoped," Patricia said, sliding the thick document across her desk. The accountant found evidence of systematic fraud. "Julian didn't just alter the documents you signed, he's been embezzling from the restaurant for 2 years. He created fake vendor accounts and funneled money to himself and Veronica." His own family's restaurant? His parents were the owners, but Julian managed the finances. They trusted him completely. He betrayed them just like he betrayed you. Nina skimmed through the report. Fake invoices. Phantom employees. Money transferred to accounts in Veronica's name. Julian had stolen over $100,000 from his family's business before Nina's inheritance even entered the picture. What happens now? Now we have enough evidence for criminal charges. The district attorney is reviewing the case. If they proceed, Julian could face jail time for fraud and embezzlement. Nina should have felt triumphant. Instead, she just felt tired. And my inheritance? The court will order full restitution. You'll get your money back plus damages. The restaurant will likely have to be sold to cover it, but that's not your problem. Julian and his family created this situation. That evening, Nina's phone rang with a number she didn't recognize. Against her better judgment, she answered. "Nina, it's Mrs. Castellano." The woman's voice was thick with tears. "Please, you have to drop the charges against Julian. He made mistakes, but he doesn't deserve prison. Think about the family. Think about Veronica's baby." "I'm thinking about my family," Nina said quietly. "My mother, who worked her whole life to leave me that inheritance. Julian stole from her memory. From me. And from you too, apparently." "What do you mean?" "The forensic report shows Julian embezzled over $100,000 from your restaurant. Long before my money came into the picture. You should read it." She hung up and blocked that number too. She was done being manipulated by Julian's family. Done letting them make her feel guilty for seeking justice. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for the following month. Julian would face both the civil fraud charges from the divorce case and potential criminal charges from the embezzlement investigation. His lawyer was now talking about plea deals. Nina focused on her new job and building her new life. She was good at consulting work. Really good. By the end of her trial period, she had identified fraud attempts in 3 different client companies and saved them hundreds of thousands of dollars. Mr. Harrison called her into his office on the last day of her trial period. "We're making your position permanent. And we're giving you a raise. $70,000 a year. You've earned it." Nina walked out of his office feeling something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. She was building something real. Something that was entirely hers. Something Julian could never take from her. 3 months into her new position, Nina finally felt like she could breathe again. The divorce proceedings were moving forward steadily. The criminal investigation had resulted in formal charges against Julian for fraud and embezzlement. His family's restaurant had been forced to close, sold to pay restitution to Nina and cover their own debts. She had moved out of Carmen's apartment and into a small but bright 1-bedroom place downtown. It wasn't much, just 800 square feet with outdated appliances, but it was hers. She painted the walls herself in soft blues and grays, colors that felt calm and peaceful. She bought second-hand furniture and made the space her own. Her therapist, Dr. Williams, had been instrumental in helping her process the betrayal without letting it consume her. Twice a week, Nina sat in the comfortable office and talked through her feelings of anger, grief, and slowly emerging hope. "You're making remarkable progress," Dr. Williams said during one session. "When you first came here, you could barely talk about what happened without breaking down. Now you're building a new life." "Some days are still hard," Nina admitted. "I see happy couples and I feel this anger. Like they stole something from me. Julian stole your trust. Your sense of security. Those are real losses that deserve to be grieved. But they don't have to define your future." Nina nodded. She was learning to sit with uncomfortable emotions instead of pushing them away. She was learning that healing wasn't linear. Some days she felt strong and capable, other days she wanted to hide under her blankets and cry. Work became her anchor. She threw herself into cases, traveling to client sites and conducting thorough financial audits. She had a gift for spotting patterns others missed, for sensing when numbers didn't add up. Her experiences with Julian had given her an instinct for deception. One Friday afternoon, Mr. Harrison called her into his office along with Ms. Chin and another senior partner, Mr. Roberts. "We have a proposition for you," Mr. Harrison began. "We're opening a new division focused specifically on helping family-owned businesses protect themselves from internal fraud. We want you to lead it." Nina's heart skipped. "Me? But I've only been here 6 months. 6 months during which you've proven yourself repeatedly," Ms. Chin said. "You understand family business dynamics in a way textbook consultants don't. You've lived through what can go wrong. This would be a significant promotion," Mr. Roberts added. "You'd have your own team, your own clients, and full autonomy over how you run the division. The salary would be $90,000 a year." Nina couldn't speak for a moment. $90,000. More money than she had ever imagined making. A leadership position. Her own team. "I accept," she said, finding her voice. "Thank you for believing in me." That weekend, Nina called Carmen to celebrate. They went out to dinner at a nice restaurant, somewhere Nina would never have felt comfortable spending money before. As they looked over the menu, Carmen raised her glass. "To new beginnings," she toasted. "To surviving," Nina countered. "To thriving," Carmen corrected with a smile. They clinked glasses and Nina felt something unfamiliar, genuine happiness. Not the desperate, grateful happiness she used to feel with Julian, always trying to prove she deserved his love. This was different. Quieter. More solid. Her phone buzzed with an email notification. The divorce had been finalized. After 8 months of legal battles, she was officially no longer married to Julian Castellano. The judge had ruled in her favor on every count. She was awarded full restitution of her inheritance plus damages totaling $50,000 for emotional distress and legal fees. "It's done," she told Carmen, showing her the email. "I'm officially divorced." Carmen squeezed her hand. "How do you feel?" "Free," Nina said and realized it was true. The weight she had been carrying for months suddenly felt lighter. "I feel free." The following Monday, Nina started assembling her team for the new Family Business Protection Division. She interviewed candidates carefully, looking for people who were not just skilled but also compassionate. People who understood that behind every fraud case were real families dealing with betrayal and broken trust. She hired 3 consultants to start. Marcus, a former family therapist who had retrained in business analysis. Stephanie, a financial analyst with experience in restaurant and retail businesses. And James, a young CPA who had uncovered fraud in his own father's company. Together, they developed a comprehensive approach to protecting family businesses. They created assessment tools, educational programs, and intervention strategies. Nina found herself energized by the work in a way she had never experienced before. "You're really good at this," Stephanie told her after a successful client presentation. "You make people feel safe enough to admit when something's wrong." Nina thought about how long she had ignored the warning signs in her own marriage. How she had made excuses for Julian's behavior because she loved him. She understood why family members covered for each other, why they wanted to believe everything was fine even when evidence suggested otherwise. "I've been on the other side," she said simply. "I know how hard it is to face the truth about someone you love." Her division grew quickly. Within 3 months they had 15 active clients. Within 6 months they had expanded to 25. Business owners appreciated Nina's direct but compassionate approach. She didn't shame them for being deceived, she helped them protect themselves going forward. The criminal case against Julian concluded that spring. He pleaded guilty to fraud and embezzlement in exchange for a reduced sentence of 18 months in prison and 5 years probation. He was also ordered to pay full restitution to Nina and his family. Nina didn't attend the sentencing. She had moved past needing to see him face consequences. She knew he was being held accountable and that was enough. Her focus was on her future, not his downfall. She did receive one final message from Veronica, sent through Patricia's office to avoid direct contact. Veronica had given birth to a baby girl. Julian was in prison and couldn't help support them. She was asking if Nina would consider dropping the restitution requirement to give Julian a fresh start when he was released. Nina's response was short, no. She felt no guilt about it. Julian had made his choices. Veronica had made hers. The consequences were theirs to handle. Nina had her own life to build. That life was becoming richer and fuller every day. She reconnected with college friends she had lost touch with during her marriage. She joined a book club that met Thursday evenings at a coffee shop near her apartment. She started taking salsa dance classes on Saturday mornings, something she had always wanted to try but Julian had dismissed as silly. She was learning who she was without someone else defining her. Learning what she liked, what she wanted, what made her happy. It was harder than she expected. She had spent so many years molding herself to Julian's preferences that she had forgotten her own. But slowly, surely Nina Bennett was emerging. Not as someone's wife or someone's victim, but as herself. Strong, capable, independent, and just getting started. 1 year after her divorce was finalized, Nina stood in front of a room full of business owners at a conference on family business management. She was the keynote speaker, invited to talk about fraud prevention and internal controls. A year ago she would have been terrified. Now she felt confident and prepared. Family businesses face unique challenges, she began, her voice clear and steady. Trust is your greatest asset. But it can also be your greatest vulnerability when someone abuses it. She told her story, not in painful detail but with enough honesty to make it real. She talked about warning signs she had missed. Red flags she had explained away. The importance of separating personal relationships from business finances. The audience listened intently. During the Q&A session, hands shot up across the room. A woman in her 50s stood up, tears in her eyes. "My son has been managing our family bakery for 3 years, she said. "How do I ask for an audit without destroying our relationship?" Nina's heart went out to her. "You approach it with love but firmness. You explain that proper financial oversight protects everyone, including him. If he has nothing to hide, he should welcome transparency. If he resists, that tells you something important." After her presentation, people lined up to talk with her. Business owners, family members, accountants, all seeking advice on situations that hit too close to home. Nina stayed until the last person had spoken with her, giving each one her card and offering to help however she could. "You were amazing up there," James, one of her team members, said as they left the conference. "I think we just landed 5 new clients." He was right. By the end of the week, Nina had consultations scheduled with 7 businesses that had attended her presentation. Her division was growing faster than anyone had predicted. Mr. Harrison called her into his office that Friday. "We need to talk about expansion plans," he said. "Your division has outgrown its current structure. We want to offer you a partnership track position." Nina sat down slowly. "A partnership? You'd be the youngest partner in the firm's history. But you've earned it. Your division generates more revenue than any other department. Your client retention rate is 98%. And you've created a whole new market for our services. What would partnership mean? Higher salary, profit sharing, and a seat at the table for all major firm decisions. You'd also have the opportunity to open satellite offices in other cities if you wanted to expand further. Nina thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. I'm interested. Very interested. Good. Start thinking about your 5-year vision for the division. We'll discuss details next quarter. Nina left his office in a daze. A partnership. At 32 years old. She was building something she had never imagined possible when she was signing away her inheritance in that lawyer's office 2 years ago. That evening, she sat in her apartment with a notebook and started sketching out ideas. She wanted to expand beyond just fraud prevention. She envisioned educational programs for young people joining family businesses. Support groups for family members who had experienced financial betrayal. Maybe even a foundation to help women recover from economic abuse in marriages. The ideas flowed faster than she could write them down. She felt alive with possibility in a way she had never experienced during her marriage. Back then, all her dreams had been about Julian's success, his restaurant ideas, his family's business. Now her dreams were her own. Her phone rang. Carmen's name appeared on the screen. Hey, Nina answered. I have news. Me too, Carmen said excitedly. But you go first. Nina told her about the partnership offer, about the conference, about all the new clients and expansion possibilities. That's incredible, Carmen exclaimed. I'm so proud of you. My news is small compared to that, but I'm getting married. Nina felt a complicated surge of emotions. Joy for her friend. A twinge of sadness for her own failed marriage. But mostly genuine happiness. Carmen, that's wonderful. Tell me everything. As she listened to Carmen gush about her fiancé and their wedding plans, Nina realized something important. She didn't feel bitter about other people's happiness anymore. She could celebrate their joy without it diminishing her own. Will you be my maid of honor? Carmen asked. Of course, Nina said without hesitation. I'd be honored. They talked for another hour about wedding plans and work and life. When they hung up, Nina felt grateful for true friendship. Carmen had been there for her darkest moments. Now she got to be there for Carmen's bright ones. The next few months flew by in a whirlwind of activity. Nina hired 2 more consultants and a full-time administrative assistant for her growing division. She developed standardized training programs that could be rolled out to multiple clients. She started writing a book about financial protection in family businesses. She also started dating again cautiously. A few coffee dates that went nowhere. One man who seemed nice until he got too serious too fast. Another who reminded her too much of Julian. She didn't force it. She was content with her life as it was. Then she met Marcus at Carmen's engagement party. Not her employee Marcus, a different Marcus, a friend of Carmen's fiancé. He was an architect, creative and thoughtful, with an easy laugh that made Nina smile. They talked for hours at the party, discovering they lived in the same neighborhood and frequented the same coffee shop on Saturday mornings. He asked for her number without any games or pretense. Just a straightforward, I'd like to see you again. Can I call you? Nina gave him her number but set clear boundaries. I'm not looking for anything serious. I'm focused on my career right now. That's fair, Marcus said. How about we just grab coffee sometime and see what happens? They started meeting for coffee on Saturday mornings. Then coffee turned into breakfast. Breakfast turned into long walks through the city. Walks turned into museum visits and bookstore browsing and comfortable silences. Nina was careful not to fall too fast. She paid attention to red flags, to her instincts, to whether Marcus's actions matched his words. She talked about him in therapy, processing her fears about trusting someone new. He seems different from Julian, Dr. Williams observed. How does that feel? Scary, Nina admitted. But good scary. Like standing at the edge of something new instead of falling off a cliff. Marcus was patient with her pace. He didn't push for commitment or get upset when she needed space. He respected her work schedule and celebrated her professional successes. He was building his own career and had his own life. He wasn't looking for someone to complete him but someone to share with. 3 months into dating, he asked about her past. Nina told him the whole story, Julian, the affair, the fraud, the divorce. She watched his face carefully as she spoke, looking for judgment or pity. Instead, she saw understanding. That must have been devastating, he said quietly. I'm sorry you went through that. It was. But I'm stronger now because of it. I can see that. Marcus took her hand. You're one of the most capable people I've ever met. What happened to you doesn't define you. How you responded to it does. It was exactly what Nina needed to hear. Not empty reassurances that it wasn't her fault. Not anger at Julian on her behalf. just acknowledgement of her strength and her growth. By the time Carmen's wedding arrived that summer, Nina and Marcus had been dating for 6 months. She brought him as her plus one, and they danced together at the reception under strings of lights. "You look happy," Carmen whispered during a break in the dancing. "I am happy," Nina said, surprised by how true it was. Really happy. She wasn't happy because of Marcus, though he added joy to her life. She was happy because she had built a life she was proud of. A career she loved. Friendships that sustained her. A sense of self that no one could take away. The happiness came from within, not from someone else. That was the difference. That was what made it real. Bennett Consulting. Read the sign on the frosted glass door. Nina stood outside her new office taking in the sight. After 2 years at the consulting firm, she had decided to branch out on her own. Mr. Harrison had been supportive, even offering to become her first client once she was established. The office was small, just 3 rooms in a modest building downtown. But it was hers. She had signed the lease with her own money, money she had earned through her own work. No one could take this from her. She unlocked the door and stepped inside. The space smelled like fresh paint and new carpet. Her furniture would arrive tomorrow. For now, it was just empty rooms full of possibility. Her phone rang. Patricia, her lawyer who had become a genuine friend. "How does it feel?" Patricia asked. "Terrifying and amazing at the same time," Nina admitted. "I have 3 clients committed. I need at least 5 to break even on expenses." "You'll get them. Your reputation speaks for itself." Patricia was right. By the end of her first month in business, Nina had 7 clients. By the end of the second month, she had 12. Word spread quickly among family business owners that Nina Bennett knew how to protect them from internal fraud without destroying family relationships. She hired her first employee, Sarah, a recent business school graduate with a sharp mind and genuine compassion. Then she hired another consultant, David, who specialized in retail businesses. Her team grew to 5 people within 6 months. The divorce settlement money, plus the damages Julian had been ordered to pay, had finally come through. Nina received $297,000, her original inheritance plus accrued interest and emotional distress damages. It sat in her business account, funding her company's growth and giving her a safety net she had never had before. Julian had been released from prison after serving 14 months. Nina heard through mutual acquaintances that he was working at a car wash, trying to rebuild his life. Veronica had left him while he was incarcerated, taking their daughter and moving to another state. His parents had retired to Florida, the restaurant sale having given them just enough to survive on. Nina felt nothing when she heard these updates. No satisfaction, no pity, no lingering anger. Julian was simply part of her past, not someone who affected her present. Her present was full of meaningful work. She was helping protect family businesses from the kind of betrayal she had experienced. She was giving presentations at business schools and conferences. She was writing her book, now nearly complete, titled Family Business, Family Trust, Protecting Both. Marcus proposed on a Saturday morning at their usual coffee shop. It was simple and perfect. No elaborate production, just him saying he loved her and wanted to build a life together. Nina said yes, but with one important conversation first. "I need you to understand something," she told him that evening as they celebrated quietly in her apartment. "I will never give up my financial independence. I will never merge my business into someone else's vision. I will never sacrifice my career for a relationship. I would never ask you to," Marcus said seriously. "I fell in love with you because of who you are, ambitious, strong, independent. I don't want to change that. I want to support it. And I need a prenup. Not because I don't trust you, but because I need that legal protection for my peace of mind. Of course, we'll both have lawyers review it and make sure it's fair." That was the difference, Nina realized. Marcus didn't see her boundaries as threats. He saw them as healthy self-protection and respected them. Their relationship was built on mutual respect and support, not dependency and sacrifice. They set a wedding date for the following spring, giving them time to plan something small and meaningful. Nina threw herself into work while also enjoying the anticipation of this new chapter. Her book found a publisher that fall. A small business press that specialized in practical guides for entrepreneurs. The advance wasn't huge, $15,000, but it was validation that her knowledge and experience had value beyond just consulting. She used part of the advance to launch a new initiative through her company, free financial literacy workshops for women leaving abusive marriages. She partnered with local domestic violence shelters to offer the workshops monthly, teaching women how to protect their assets, rebuild credit and plan for financial independence. The first workshop drew 8 women. Nina stood in the community center conference room, looking at their wary, hopeful faces, and remembered sitting in Carmen's apartment 2 years earlier, broken and lost. "Financial abuse is real," she began. "And recovery is possible. I know because I lived through it." She shared her story again, more detailed than she had at business conferences. She talked about the warning signs, the manipulation, the systematic theft. She also talked about rebuilding, how she had gone from having nothing to owning her own successful business. "You don't have to stay stuck," she told them. "There is a path forward. It's hard, but it's real." After the workshop, women approached her with questions, with thanks, with tears. One woman, Maria, pulled her aside. "I thought I was the only one," Maria said quietly. "My husband controlled everything. Took my paychecks. Wouldn't let me have my own bank account. I felt so stupid for letting it happen." "You're not stupid," Nina said firmly. "You're brave for getting out. And you're going to be okay." She gave Maria her business card with her personal cell number written on the back. "Call me if you need help. Anytime." That night, Nina lay in bed thinking about the workshop. About how far she had come. About all the women still trapped in situations she had escaped. An idea started forming, bigger than just monthly workshops. Something more comprehensive. The next morning she called Patricia. "I want to start a foundation. Something that provides financial counseling, legal support, and business training for women recovering from economic abuse. Can you help me set it up?" "Absolutely," Patricia said. "What are you thinking?" "I want to call it the Sarah Bennett Foundation after my mother. She left me that inheritance believing it would secure my future. Julian stole it, but I got it back and built something with it. Now I want to use it to help other women do the same." Over the next 6 months, Nina worked with Patricia to establish the foundation as a non-profit organization. She donated $50,000 of her own money to get it started. She recruited board members, including Carmen, Patricia, and 2 of her former clients who had experienced family business betrayal. The foundation launched the same month Nina's book was published. The local press covered both stories, framing Nina as a symbol of resilience and entrepreneurship. She gave interviews about her journey from betrayal victim to successful business owner and philanthropist. Some reporters asked if she felt vindictive toward Julian. She always gave the same answer: "I don't think about him at all. My focus is on building something positive, not dwelling on the past." It was true. She rarely thought about Julian anymore. When she did, it was with the same mild curiosity she might feel about any stranger. He was someone who had once been part of her life but no longer mattered. What mattered was the foundation. Her business. Her upcoming wedding. The life she was actively creating rather than passively accepting. Carmen helped her plan a simple wedding ceremony in the garden of a botanical park. 50 guests, spring flowers, and vows they wrote themselves. Nina wore a simple cream dress and carried wildflowers. Marcus wore a navy suit and couldn't stop smiling. When they exchanged rings, Nina felt none of the anxiety she had felt at her first wedding. No nagging sense that she had to prove herself worthy. No fear that this happiness was temporary or conditional. This was different. Built on honesty, equality, and mutual respect. Built on a foundation strong enough to last. 3 years after launching her own consulting firm, Nina stood in front of her expanded team in their new office space. They had grown from 5 employees to 22. They had clients in 4 states. Revenue had tripled from the previous year. "I'm proud of all of you," she told her team during their quarterly meeting. "When I started this company, I just wanted to help a few family businesses protect themselves. Now we're making a real difference for hundreds of families." The applause was genuine. Nina had built a company culture based on compassion and competence. She paid well, offered flexible schedules, and treated her employees like valued partners rather than expendable resources. In return, they gave her loyalty and excellent work. Her book had become a small bestseller in business circles. She received speaking invitations from across the country. Her foundation was helping over 200 women annually with financial counseling and support. She had also expanded her business model. In addition to consulting, she now offered online courses for family business owners. She had created a certification program for accountants and lawyers who wanted to specialize in family business protection. The passive income from these programs allowed her to take on more pro bono foundation work. Life with Marcus was good. They had bought a house together, a 3-bedroom bungalow with a yard where they planned to plant a garden. The prenup had been signed without drama. They maintained separate business accounts while sharing household expenses equally. Marcus's architecture firm was also thriving. They had interesting dinner conversations about their respective projects, offering each other advice and support. They traveled together when schedules allowed, exploring new cities and cultures. They had decided not to have children. Nina felt no biological urge for motherhood, and Marcus was content with their life as it was. It was a decision they made together without pressure or regret. Nina's relationship with her body and self-worth had transformed. She no longer measured her value by whether someone else chose her. She knew her worth came from her character, her work, her impact on the world. The scars from Julian's betrayal had healed into something stronger: wisdom and resilience. One afternoon, as she was reviewing client files in her office, Sarah knocked on her door. "There's someone here to see you," Sarah said, her expression odd. "He says it's important." "Who is it?" "Julian Castellano." Nina felt her stomach drop. She hadn't seen Julian in 3 years, not since the final court appearance. "Tell him I'm unavailable." "I already did." "He says he'll wait." Nina considered having security remove him but decided that would give him too much power over her emotions. "Fine. Give me 5 minutes, then send him in." She used those 5 minutes to center herself, reminding herself of who she was now. Julian couldn't hurt her anymore. He was just a man who had once made very bad choices. Nothing more. When he walked into her office, Nina barely recognized him. He had aged poorly, his face lined with stress and defeat. He wore a cheap suit that didn't fit properly. He looked like someone who had been thoroughly beaten by life. "Thank you for seeing me," he said quietly. "You have 10 minutes. What do you want?" Julian sat down without being invited. "I wanted to apologize. For everything. I was selfish and cruel, and I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me." Nina felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no pity. Just a mild impatience to get this over with. "I don't need your apology, Julian. What I needed was honesty 3 years ago. An apology now changes nothing." "I know, but I had to try. I've been in therapy, working on myself, understanding why I did what I did." "Good for you. Is that all?" He looked surprised by her coldness. "I also wanted to ask, my dad is sick. Cancer. They can't afford the treatment. I know I have no right to ask, but—" "No," Nina said immediately. "I'm not even asking for me. For my dad. He always liked you." "He liked my money," Nina corrected. "He knew about your affair and helped you steal from me. Whatever sympathy I might have had for your family died when I learned they were all in on it." "Nina, please." "I said no. Your father made choices. You made choices. Veronica made choices. Those choices have consequences. I'm not your backup plan or your ATM." Julian's face reddened with frustration. "I thought you had become this better person. All this foundation work helping women. But you're still vindictive." Nina laughed, a genuine sound without humor. "You think establishing boundaries is vindictive? You think refusing to bankroll the people who defrauded me is cruel? That's exactly the mentality that allowed you to justify what you did in the first place." She stood up. "Your 10 minutes are up. Sarah will show you out. If you try to contact me again, I'll file for a restraining order." Julian stood slowly. "I hope you're happy, Nina. I hope all this success fills the hole where your heart used to be." "I am happy," Nina said calmly. "Genuinely, deeply happy. Not because of your downfall, but because I built a life I'm proud of. Now leave." After he was gone, Nina sat in her office for a long moment, processing the encounter. She had expected to feel something: anger, triumph, satisfaction. Instead, she just felt tired and ready to move on with her day. She called Marcus to tell him what had happened. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Okay, actually. He's just sad and pathetic. I don't hate him. I don't feel sorry for him. He's just not my problem anymore." "That's healthy," Marcus said. "You want me to come by the office? We could grab lunch." "That would be nice." They met at their favorite cafe, sitting outside in the spring sunshine. Nina told him the whole conversation while they ate. "Do you think I should have helped his father?" she asked. "Why would you?" "I don't know. Common decency? Compassion?" Marcus shook his head. "Compassion isn't the same as being a doormat. His father participated in defrauding you. His son stole from you. They're not your responsibility. Helping them would just enable the same patterns that got them here." Julian Castellano. Nina felt her stomach drop. She hadn't seen Julian in 3 years, not since the final court appearance. "Tell him I'm unavailable." "I already did." "He says he'll wait." Nina considered having security remove him but decided that would give him too much power over her emotions. "Fine. Give me 5 minutes, then send him in. She used those 5 minutes to center herself, reminding herself of who she was now. Julian couldn't hurt her anymore. He was just a man who had once made very bad choices. Nothing more. When he walked into her office, Nina barely recognized him. He had aged poorly, his face lined with stress and defeat. He wore a cheap suit that didn't fit properly. He looked like someone who had been thoroughly beaten by life. "Thank you for seeing me," he said quietly. "You have 10 minutes. What do you want?" Julian sat down without being invited. "I wanted to apologize. For everything. I was selfish and cruel, and I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me." Nina felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no pity. Just a mild impatience to get this over with. "I don't need your apology, Julian. What I needed was honesty 3 years ago. An apology now changes nothing." "I know, but I had to try. I've been in therapy working on myself, understanding why I did what I did." "Good for you. Is that all?" He looked surprised by her coldness. "I also wanted to ask, my dad is sick. Cancer. They can't afford the treatment. I know I have no right to ask, but—" "No," Nina said immediately. "I'm not even asking for me. For my dad. He always liked you." "He liked my money," Nina corrected. "He knew about your affair and helped you steal from me. Whatever sympathy I might have had for your family died when I learned they were all in on it." "Nina, please." "I said no. Your father made choices. You made choices. Veronica made choices. Those choices have consequences. I'm not your backup plan or your ATM." Julian's face reddened with frustration. "I thought you had become this better person. All this foundation work helping women. But you're still vindictive." Nina laughed, a genuine sound without humor. "You think establishing boundaries is vindictive? You think refusing to bankroll the people who defrauded me is cruel? That's exactly the mentality that allowed you to justify what you did in the first place." She stood up. "Your 10 minutes are up. Sarah will show you out. If you try to contact me again, I'll file for a restraining order." Julian stood slowly. "I hope you're happy, Nina. I hope all this success fills the hole where your heart used to be." "I am happy," Nina said calmly. "Genuinely, deeply happy. Not because of your downfall, but because I built a life I'm proud of. Now leave." After he was gone, Nina sat in her office for a long moment, processing the encounter. She had expected to feel something: anger, triumph, satisfaction. Instead, she just felt tired and ready to move on with her day. She called Marcus to tell him what had happened. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Okay, actually. He's just sad and pathetic. I don't hate him. I don't feel sorry for him. He's just not my problem anymore." "That's healthy," Marcus said. "You want me to come by the office? We could grab lunch. That would be nice." They met at their favorite cafe, sitting outside in the spring sunshine. Nina told him the whole conversation while they ate. "Do you think I should have helped his father?" she asked. "Why would you?" "I don't know. Common decency? Compassion?" Marcus shook his head. "Compassion isn't the same as being a doormat. His father participated in defrauding you. His son stole from you. They're not your responsibility. Helping them would just enable the same patterns that got them here." "That's what I thought. But I wanted to make sure I wasn't being unreasonably harsh." "You're not. You're being appropriately boundaried. There's a difference." That evening, Nina taught her monthly workshop at the women's shelter. One of the participants asked about forgiveness. "Do we have to forgive to move on?" the woman asked. Nina thought carefully before answering. "Forgiveness is personal. Some people find it healing. Some don't. What I've learned is that you don't need to forgive someone to stop letting them control your life. You just need to build something better and move forward." After the workshop, Maria approached her. The same Maria who had attended the very first workshop 2 years earlier. "I wanted to tell you," Maria said, beaming. "I got my real estate license. I started a new firm next month. And I signed the lease on my own apartment." Nina pulled her into a hug. "Maria, that's wonderful. I'm so proud of you. I couldn't have done it without the foundation. The financial counseling, the support groups, the job training program. You gave me the tools to rebuild. These moments, seeing women transform their lives, made everything worthwhile. Every difficult day, every hard decision, every boundary she had to enforce. It all led to this real, measurable impact on real lives." Business magazine profiles started featuring Nina. "From Betrayal to Business Empire" read one headline. "How One Woman Turned Fraud into a Force for Good," read another. She used the publicity to raise awareness for the foundation and recruit more clients for the business. Her team continued to grow. She opened a second office location in a neighboring state. She hired a CFO to handle the expanding financial operations. She developed partnerships with law schools to provide legal services to foundation clients. The Sarah Bennett Foundation received a grant from a major women's advocacy organization, $50,000 to expand programming. Nina used it to launch a mentorship program pairing successful businesswomen with women rebuilding after economic abuse. She also started receiving requests to testify before state legislatures about laws protecting against financial abuse in marriages. She traveled to capital cities, telling her story to lawmakers and advocating for stronger protections. "You're becoming famous," Carmen teased during one of their regular coffee dates. "Not famous, just visible," Nina corrected. "I'm using my platform to create change." "That's different. Either way, I'm proud of you. Look how far you've come." Nina looked around the upscale cafe where they sat. 3 years ago, she couldn't have afforded a coffee here. Now she didn't have to think about the price. She had built financial security through her own work, her own intelligence, her own determination. More importantly, she had built a life with meaning. A business that helped people. A foundation that changed lives. Relationships based on mutual respect. A sense of self that couldn't be shaken by someone else's betrayal. She thought about Julian sitting in that cheap suit, asking for money, trying to make her feel guilty. He had no power over her anymore. None at all. That was the best revenge. Building a life so full and satisfying that your betrayer became irrelevant. Not defeated, not destroyed, just irrelevant. Nina smiled at Carmen. "Yeah, I really have." 5 years after her divorce, Nina stood at a podium in a hotel ballroom addressing 500 business owners at the National Family Business Conference. She was the keynote speaker, invited to close out the 3-day event. "When I started my journey into family business consulting," she began, "I never imagined it would lead here. I was just trying to make sense of my own experience, to turn pain into purpose." She told her story once more, but this time it felt different. It wasn't raw and fresh anymore. It was simply history, facts that had shaped her but no longer defined her. The Sarah Bennett Foundation has now helped over 800 women rebuild their financial lives after economic abuse, she continued. "My consulting firm has protected millions of dollars in family business assets and saved countless family relationships by implementing proper oversight and accountability." The audience applauded. Nina looked out at the sea of faces. Business owners, consultants, family members all trying to navigate the complex intersection of family and finance. She saw herself in many of them. After her speech, people lined up to talk with her. They asked for business cards, book signings, advice on their specific situations. Nina stayed for over an hour, giving each person her full attention. A woman in her 70s waited until everyone else had gone. "My name is Dorothy Castellano," she said quietly. Nina's stomach tightened. Julian's grandmother. The matriarch of his family. "I wanted to apologize," Dorothy continued. "For my family. For what they did to you. I didn't know about it until everything came out in court. I was living in a nursing home, not involved in the restaurant anymore." "I appreciate that," Nina said carefully. "My grandson destroyed something precious because of greed and weakness. My son and daughter-in-law enabled him. I'm ashamed of what they did." Nina softened slightly. "How is your son? I heard he was sick." "He passed away 6 months ago. Cancer." Dorothy's eyes filled with tears. "He wanted to apologize to you before he died, but Julian said you refused to see him." "Julian asked me for money," Nina corrected gently. "Not for an apology." Dorothy nodded sadly. "That sounds like Julian. He never learned. Even now, he blames everyone else for his problems." "I'm sorry for your loss," Nina said and meant it. Whatever Mr. Castellano had done, Dorothy didn't deserve to lose her son. "Thank you." Dorothy reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. "This is for you. Please don't throw it away without reading it." Nina accepted the envelope reluctantly. After Dorothy left, she opened it in the privacy of the women's restroom. Inside was a handwritten letter from Mr. Castellano, dated 2 months before his death. "Dear Nina," it read. "I am dying and I need to say this while I still can. What we did to you was unforgivable. We used your grief over your mother to manipulate you. We stole from you. We lied to you. We enabled Julian's worst behaviors because we were desperate to save our restaurant and too proud to admit failure. You owed us nothing and we took everything. I am ashamed. I can't undo what we did, but I want you to know that you were right to seek justice. You were right to protect yourself. You were right to refuse to let us victimize you again. I hope you have found peace and happiness. You deserve both. With deepest regret, Thomas Castellano. Nina read the letter twice, then folded it carefully. It didn't change anything. It didn't erase what had happened. But it was something, an acknowledgement of wrongdoing from someone who had participated in it. She filed it away in her briefcase and returned to the conference. There were more people to meet, more connections to make, more work to do. That evening, she had dinner with Marcus at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the city. She told him about Dorothy and the letter. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Sad for them, I guess. They destroyed their own family with their choices. The restaurant is gone. Mr. Castellano died in debt. Julian is still struggling. Mrs. Castellano lives on a fixed income. They lost everything they tried so hard to save. And you?" "I'm sitting in a nice restaurant with someone I love, celebrating the success of a business I built from nothing, knowing I've helped hundreds of people. I'd say I'm doing okay." Marcus raised his glass. "To doing okay." Nina clinked her glass against his, smiling. "More than okay, actually." She was thriving. The foundation continued to expand. Nina hired a full-time director so she could focus more on the consulting business and speaking engagements. The board of directors grew to include several prominent businesswomen and advocates. They launched a scholarship program for daughters of women who had experienced economic abuse, helping them pursue business degrees. They started a job placement program connecting women with employers who valued resilience and determination. Nina received an award from a national women's business organization. She was named to a list of 40 under 40 business leaders. She was invited to serve on advisory boards for several nonprofits. Her second book came out, a memoir combined with practical advice called Rebuilding, From Financial Abuse to Financial Freedom. It sold better than the first, resonating with women who saw their own stories in Nina's journey. She used the book tour to promote the foundation and recruit sponsors. Major corporations started donating, impressed by the foundation's track record of actually changing lives rather than just raising awareness. Meanwhile, Julian's occasional attempts to contact her had stopped entirely. She heard through the grapevine that he had moved to another state, working construction, trying to start over somewhere no one knew his history. She felt neither satisfaction nor sympathy. He was just someone who existed somewhere else, doing something else, completely separate from her life. Veronica, too, had faded into irrelevance. Nina knew nothing about her current life and didn't care to know. The baby girl they had created was 7 now, growing up with whatever consequences her parents' choices had created. Nina hoped the child would be okay but knew she had no role in that story. Her role was here with the people she was actively helping, with the businesses she was protecting, with the women she was empowering, with the life she was consciously building every single day. Carmen gave birth to twins that year, a boy and a girl. Nina visited them in the hospital, holding the tiny babies and feeling content with her choice not to have children. She loved being Auntie Nina, spoiling them and handing them back when they cried. "You don't have any regrets?" Carmen asked during the visit. "About kids? No. My life is full without them. I'm fulfilled by my work, my marriage, my friendships. I don't need motherhood to feel complete." "Good. I was worried you might feel like you were missing out." Nina shook her head. "I learned the hard way that I can't live my life based on what other people think I should want. I have to live it based on what actually makes me happy and fulfilled." That philosophy extended to every area of her life now. She didn't accept speaking engagements just for prestige. She didn't take on clients just for money. She didn't maintain relationships just because they had history. She was intentional about every choice, every commitment, every use of her time and energy. The foundation celebrated its 5th anniversary with a gala fundraiser. Over 300 people attended, raising over $200,000 in a single evening. Women the foundation had helped spoke about their transformations. Board members shared statistics about impact. Nina stood on stage, overwhelmed with gratitude. "5 years ago I was broken," she told the crowd. "I had lost my money, my marriage, my sense of self. I was starting over with nothing but determination and a desire to make meaning from suffering. Today we're celebrating a foundation that has helped over 1,000 women rebuild their lives. This is what's possible when we transform pain into purpose." After the gala, Marcus drove them home through the quiet city streets. "You've built something remarkable," he said. "Not just the foundation or the business but your whole life. You took the worst thing that ever happened to you and turned it into something that helps thousands of people." "We all have that power," Nina said. "We all get to choose what we do with our pain." I chose to build instead of destroy, to help instead of hate, to grow instead of shrink. She looked out the window at the city lights, thinking about all the women out there still trapped in situations like the one she had escaped. Women who thought they had no options, no power, no future. There's still so much work to do, she said. And you'll do it, Marcus assured her. One person at a time. One business at a time. One choice at a time. That was exactly right. Change didn't happen all at once. It happened through consistent, intentional action. Through showing up every day and doing the work. Through refusing to let setbacks define you or stop you. Julian had tried to destroy her. Instead, he had inadvertently given her the catalyst she needed to become someone stronger, wiser, and more impactful than she ever would have been if he had been faithful. She didn't thank him for that. She credited herself, for surviving, for choosing growth, for building something beautiful from the ashes of betrayal. That was her revenge, living well, loving fully, and making a difference. Not because of what he did, but in spite of it. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Nina's home office as she reviewed the quarterly reports for her consulting firm. 8 years after starting the business, it was more successful than she had ever imagined. Annual revenue had crossed $2 million. They had offices in 3 states. The team had grown to 42 employees. The Sarah Bennett Foundation had helped over 2,000 women rebuild their financial lives. The scholarship program had sent 56 young women to college. The job placement program had a 93% success rate. They had partnered with domestic violence shelters in 12 states. Nina was 38 now, content in ways she never imagined possible at 30 when her world had fallen apart. She had laugh lines around her eyes from genuine joy. Gray strands were starting to appear in her hair, and she didn't bother to color them. They were badges of wisdom earned through experience. Marcus walked into the office carrying 2 cups of coffee. How are the numbers looking? Strong. We might need to hire 3 more consultants next quarter. You always say that like it's a problem, he teased. Most people would be thrilled their business is growing too fast. Nina smiled. I want to make sure we grow sustainably. Quality over quantity. Her phone rang. An unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Is this Nina Bennett? A young woman's voice asked. Yes. Who's calling? My name is Rachel. This is awkward. I'm Julian Castellano's daughter. Nina froze. Julian's daughter would be 8 years old now. This caller was clearly an adult. I think you have the wrong Nina Bennett, she said carefully. No, I don't. My mom told me about you. My dad and I don't talk, but I found your foundation website. I'm calling because I was in an abusive relationship. My boyfriend controlled all my money. I just got out and I have nothing. I saw you help women like me. Nina's mind raced. Julian had another child? Before their marriage? Rachel, I'm confused. How old are you? 21. My dad left my mom when I was 2. He married you when I was 7, I think. I never met you. He never talked about me. Of course he didn't, Nina thought bitterly. Another lie, another secret. I'm sorry you're going through this, Nina said, pushing aside her shock. The foundation can help you. Let me transfer you to our intake coordinator. Wait, Rachel said quickly. I wanted to talk to you specifically. My mom told me what happened between you and my dad. How he stole from you. I'm not asking for special treatment. I just wanted you to know that I'm not like him. And that I'm sorry for what he did. Nina closed her eyes, processing this. Another casualty of Julian's selfishness. A daughter he had abandoned who was now suffering in her own way. You don't need to apologize for your father's actions, Nina said gently. His choices were his own. And yes, the foundation will help you. Not because of who your father is, but because helping women like you is exactly why I started it. She spent the next 20 minutes talking with Rachel, gathering basic information and connecting her with resources. After the call ended, Nina sat quietly, absorbing this new reality. What was that about? Marcus asked. Nina explained about Rachel, Julian's daughter she never knew existed. Are you okay? Marcus asked, concerned. I'm fine. Just amazed at how many layers of deception that man was capable of. She shook her head. He had a whole daughter he never mentioned in 5 years of marriage. Are you going to help her? Of course. She's a victim of his selfishness just like I was. Maybe more so, at least I chose to marry him. She didn't choose him as a father. Over the next few weeks, the foundation worked with Rachel. They helped her find temporary housing, connected her with a therapist, enrolled her in financial literacy classes. Nina stayed somewhat involved, checking on her progress without getting too personally entangled. Rachel thrived with support. She got a job at a bookstore. She enrolled in community college classes. She started rebuilding her credit and her life. "You're like a whole different person from my dad," Rachel told Nina during one of their check-in calls. "He always made excuses, blamed everyone else. You own your choices and help other people do the same." "I had to learn that the hard way," Nina said. "But yes, accountability is important." Rachel's situation made Nina think about legacy. What people left behind wasn't just money or possessions, it was impact. Julian would be remembered as someone who had hurt people, who had taken more than he gave, who had left destruction in his wake. Nina was building a different kind of legacy. One based on helping rather than harming. On building rather than destroying. On empowering rather than controlling. She received an invitation to speak at a congressional hearing on economic abuse in marriage. The committee was considering new federal protections, and they wanted Nina's testimony about the gaps in current law. She flew to Washington, D.C. and sat before the committee, telling her story one more time. But this time she also brought data. Statistics from the foundation about how many women experienced economic abuse. Success rates from their programs. Cost-benefit analyses showing how preventive education saved money in the long run. The committee members listened intently. 2 weeks later, they announced they would be drafting new legislation incorporating many of Nina's recommendations. It would require clearer documentation for large asset transfers between spouses. It would mandate financial abuse education in marriage license applications. It would expand legal remedies for victims. "You're changing the law," Patricia said when Nina called to tell her. "You're literally changing the legal system to protect other women from what you went through." "We're changing it," Nina corrected. "This took all of us. The foundation staff, the women who shared their stories, the lawyers who worked pro bono. It's a collective effort." But she felt proud. Deeply proud. 8 years ago, she had been powerless, watching her inheritance disappear into someone else's fraud scheme. Now she was testifying before Congress, influencing federal policy, protecting future generations. The consulting business continued to thrive. Nina published a third book, this one focused specifically on preventing financial abuse in family businesses. She launched an online certification program for financial advisors who wanted to specialize in helping abuse survivors. She and Marcus celebrated their 7th wedding anniversary with a trip to Italy. They toured ancient ruins and ate incredible food and talked for hours about their dreams for the future. Their relationship had deepened into something comfortable and solid, a partnership built on mutual respect and genuine affection. "Do you ever think about where you'd be if Julian had been faithful?" Marcus asked one evening as they sat overlooking the Mediterranean. Nina considered the question. "Sometimes. But honestly, I don't think I would have been happy in that marriage even without the affair. I was trying to be someone I wasn't. Trying to shrink myself to fit into his family's expectations. The betrayal forced me to rebuild from scratch, to figure out who I actually wanted to be. So in a weird way, it was the best thing that could have happened? Not the best thing. It was devastating and traumatic and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. But I made the best of it. I chose to grow instead of staying broken. That's the difference." They flew home renewed and ready for the next chapter. Nina had been thinking about succession planning for her business. She was only 38, but she wanted to build something that would outlast her, that would continue helping people long after she was gone. She started developing a leadership track for her senior consultants, training them not just in technical skills but in the philosophy behind the work. She wanted the business to remain mission-driven even as it grew. The foundation announced a major expansion. They were going national with satellite programs in 10 states. They had secured multi-year funding from 3 major corporations. They were hiring a communications director to increase public awareness. At the launch event, Nina stood before a crowd of donors, volunteers, and women the foundation had helped. She looked out at faces representing hundreds of stories of survival and transformation. 8 years ago, I sat in my best friend's apartment, broken and lost, she told them. I had lost my marriage, my money, and my sense of self. If someone had told me then that I would be standing here now, leading a national organization that helps thousands of women, I wouldn't have believed them. She paused, looking at Rachel sitting in the third row, clean and sober and enrolled in college. At Maria, now a successful real estate agent who volunteered for the foundation in her spare time. At Dorothy Castellano, Julian's grandmother, who had started donating monthly to the foundation as a way to make amends for her family's actions. But here's what I've learned, Nina continued. We are not defined by what's done to us. We're defined by what we do next. Every woman in this room has faced something hard. Some of you have experienced betrayal, abuse, loss. But you didn't let it destroy you. You chose to survive, to rebuild, to help others do the same. The room erupted in applause. Nina felt tears prick her eyes, good tears, grateful tears. After the event, she drove home through the city where she had built this new life. She passed the building where her consulting firm had its first tiny office, the coffee shop where she and Marcus had their first date, the community center where she taught her first financial literacy workshop. Every corner held a memory of rebuilding, of choosing growth, of refusing to stay broken. She arrived home to find Marcus in the kitchen making dinner. Their home was filled with warmth and laughter and the comfortable silence of people who genuinely enjoyed each other's company. Nina poured herself a glass of wine and stood at the window, looking out at the garden they had planted together. Roses blooming in the late summer sun. Tomatoes ripening on the vine. Life growing abundantly from soil they had prepared together. Her phone buzzed with a text from Carmen. Saw the foundation launch on the news. So proud of you. Nina smiled and texted back. Couldn't have done it without you. And it was true. Carmen had been there from the beginning, offering her couch and her support when Nina had nothing else. Patricia had fought for her when she couldn't fight for herself. Her team had built something remarkable together. Marcus had loved her without trying to change or fix her. But ultimately Nina had saved herself. She had made the hard choices. She had done the difficult work of healing and growing. She had taken the pain of betrayal and transformed it into purpose. Julian was somewhere living his life. She neither knew nor cared where or how. He was irrelevant to her story now except as the catalyst that forced her to become someone stronger. The revenge wasn't that he had suffered. The revenge was that she had thrived. That she had built a life so full of meaning and joy that his betrayal had become just one chapter in a much longer, richer story. Nina raised her glass to her reflection in the window. To survival. To growth. To the woman she had become and the life she had built from nothing. To new beginnings over and over again.